right. Hi, Erica. So glad to have you on the podcast. I feel like you were on another podcast, another iteration, another, version of me. But now you're on this one. And so happy to have you. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful, and I am so happy to be here with you. Thank you for
Oh, so happy to
having
be
me.
with you too. It's been a minute. So it's like one of these times where I get to catch up with people I'm actually friends with outside of this world, outside of podcasting. And so when I thought about building the new year, our theme for January is New Year Healed Me. And so we are really digging into not this whole notion of you've got to change everything about yourself. You got to start from scratch every year. We're not doing that. But instead, like, what would it look like if we wanted to be the most healed version of ourselves, right? The best version. And so for that, it also links in with having a vision for your future and knowing what you want your life to be like. What does healing look like for you? And I also thought, what is everyone doing in the beginning of the year, end of last year, is they are vision boarding. They are doing all those things. And so it was like, well, who can guide us through vision boarding? Erica. Erica Reed. She's the person. So let's start with, first of all, what is the goal? I'll start simple. What is the goal of a vision board?
A vision board, quite simply, is to keep you focused and consistent on what you've identified as important to you. And whether that's for a time frame or for your life, it's really about keeping you in that space so that you can get what you said you wanted.
Love that. And I do think, like, as people are thinking about what do I want? Like, what is that? I want to make this episode as actionable as possible. That's the other element of this month is I want people to walk away from this conversation and do something immediately to start building their vision board or to tweak it if they need to. And so where would you start? Like, how would you guide someone? Let's say you had 15 minutes just to get it going. Like, where would you start guiding someone on where they need to start to be vision boarding?
And I love that because it has to be actionable, right? But to
Yes.
start with, and maybe it's the therapist in me, but we have to do a bit of reflection. We have to reflect on the areas in your life, whether it's your emotions, whether it's your career, your family, your finances. In each of those areas, kind of reflecting where you are right now, what you are appreciative or liking, or what you want to see some changes in each of these areas. So starting with that reflection will help guide you in how you're developing this. Part of that reflection is recognizing where you have gotten stuck. Like, there are a lot of times we have these same goals every year, but they just don't happen. So being honest about what's kept you in this same position, what has not allowed you to move forward. So being clear about what some of those barriers or obstacles, including the narratives that we tell ourselves. So that's really, really important as well. And then last but not least, in that 15-minute time frame is really being focused on defining those areas that are important to you. Too often we do what we say we're going to do because other people have told us it's important, or we're trying to live up to other people's expectations, or we're following the path that other people have set for us, whether it's because of the role we have in family or what we just think we're supposed to do to be fabulous, darling. Defining what's important to you, specifically you, is a great way to use 15 minutes before you dive in to creating your vision board.
I really like that you're saying that reflection is a huge part of vision boarding. I think people think that that's true. Like, I don't know anyone's going, oh, no, not reflection. Of course, people think about that. But then there's also so much emphasis put on, like, the aesthetic of a mood board, right? And the vision board, the aesthetics of that. It has to look a certain way, find the right picture. But how are you ever going to put it together if you don't, you could build a pretty picture, but is that actually the life you want, right? Like, are that actually the goals of the things you want to be working toward? And it's good to have that visual reminder, but there has to be something behind it. And so it makes total sense to me that taking at least 15 minutes to kind of think about what are the obstacles and challenges that I've been dealing with. What do I actually want? Like, what would a healed, in this case, a healed version of me look like versus, oh, well, I have a bunch of pretty pictures and I want to put them together. I want, a 7-figure year and I want to lose 50 pounds. And so let me just put together some, attractive women who fit an aesthetic. Instead of that, really thinking about those essential elements seem key. And along those lines, what other kind of essential elements do you think need to be in? Now we've done a little bit of reflection. Now we're moving into actually creating that. What do you think some of those elements, if you could distill it to like three or maybe even less or more, what would you make those elements?
Well, I love that you have asked this question because there are so many, in my opinion, different ideas of what it should be.
Yeah.
And part of that is just knowing the purpose behind it, right? Going back to focus and consistent. And the way we stay focused and consistent is connecting to our why. Why is this important to me? So, one of the most important things to have ingrained into your vision board is a connection to your why. What's going to keep you motivated when things get hard, when you get off track, when you fall off the wagon? What's going to restart you? And having your clarity and your why and having that tied into your vision board is very, very important. And I love, helping people figure out how to do that is really, really, really fun for me. Another key element is it has to be personalized. Like, really, if I look at your vision board and I actually don't understand what any of these images mean, that's awesome, because a vision board is not for someone else, it's for you. It's really the images or the words that you choose should be directly personal and speaking to you, so that when you look at that image, when you read the quotes or the scriptures or whatever you're putting on your board, it means something to you. And it's not just, as you said, a picture of these beautiful women being fabulous and living their best lives. And, what does that mean to you? Which leads to maybe number 3 is evoking emotion. There, we get tired, right? We don't necessarily feel like doing things that we know is in our best interest. So we are emotional creatures. So a lot of our motivation is tied to the emotion that we feel. So if you're looking at your vision board, it really needs to evoke certain emotions. And only you know what those desired emotions are, whether it's peace, whether it's accomplishment, whether it's love, whatever it is that you have connected to your goals that you're defining and the resulting emotion, your board should evoke that for you as well, because that's how we stay motivated.
I, that is so thoughtful. And I think too, I'm someone who's going to do my vision board afterward. I wanted to have this conversation first before I did it. But as someone who's done it in the past, and I have thought, I felt like I was thinking, deeply on that and thinking about, well, what did I want to happen? But those 3 elements really make sense to me. And I don't know that I always considered them when I put them together. Like, I would do the reverse, like, oh, this picture looks great. And it also kind of connects to what, I want for the year. So there was the clarity missing, which is what you're talking about. And I don't know when I looked at the vision board that it always invoked an emotion necessarily. Like, it might have been like, okay, this is great. Oh yeah, remember, I would like those things. But because I put a bunch of stuff I would like versus really clarity on what I want to feel this year, how I want to show up, I don't know that those vision boards always reflected me. And I don't know that I was a waste of time, but I do think that this way, those 3 elements that you're laying out for us is going to set you up so much so that you have the motivation and you have the ability to hit the goals, because that's the purpose of it, right? And so it's like, if that's the case, how do you then leverage? We're going to use those elements. We now know where to get started. How do you let that vision board not be something like you like chuck in your cupboard or put to the side or like have staring as a picture you might glance at? How do you actually make it a tool of motivation so it just goes beyond that fun time you might be having in January?
Yes, that's what makes it more of a working project as opposed to a party, right? It's great doing it in a group of folks, and I love that aspect of it, but it really is about the work and your willingness. So to your point, this is not about creating this image, these pretty pictures, and then shove it in the closet. Number one, it has to be in front of you. And, I actually have mine sitting right there. I look at it every day, all day. So visually, it needs to be near you, in front of you. And I love the ability to do it as a digital vision board,
Yeah.
Canva is bae.
Oh, yeah.
And being able to do it that way, because digitally you can put it in so many different places that we look at every day. And then also being able to print it out so it's in front of you as well. But in addition to that, the most important thing is making, to use your word, the things that are on that board actionable. And the way to do that is to pull specific goals out from it. And the goals have to be SMART goals. You know, they have to be specific, they have to be measurable, actionable, achievable, relevant. And it has to be a time base to it. You know, sometimes people say, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds. Okay, darling, that's lovely. But let's break it down a little bit. What does that? How does it look? What do you need to do to make it happen? And I love accountability too. So that's one of the things that really keep us on track. So having it wherever you are, whether it's in front of you, whether it's digitally on your laptop, on your screensaver, but then making very specific actionable goals from each, or even maybe just one of the images on it. Sometimes we overwhelm ourselves by having 50, 11 different goals all at once.
Yes.
But maybe we can start with one and move forward from there.
No, that makes a lot of sense because that's the thing too. Like with a vision board, you're going to have many components, right? You might have a little section for like professional success or personal success or, you know, spirituality and the goals you might have. You want to meditate more, you want to be more religious, whatever that is. And your vision board, at least if you're me, it gets pretty full. Like there's a lot going on in the vision, right? It's like, I want this, 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 and this, and this. And that could become, you know, 50 SMART goals, which, you know, we all know you're probably not going to achieve all of those, and you might get overwhelmed and say, you know, step out. And so I like going back to one of the things too is like think about making a SMART goal or making actionable maybe the emotion. So it's like it's less about I need to lose 50 pounds. I have to be in a specific partnership by this date, or I have to make this much money, and more about I'm going to use our theme of like, I want to feel the most healed version. When I look at that, I want to feel a sense of peace. Like I want to feel a sense of peace in my vision board. And so actualizing and making actionable that feeling, like it's like, okay, so if I want to make myself feel peaceful, that's what I want for this year for myself. I want some softness. How do I then make that a SMART goal, right? How do I make that feeling a reality? And it may not be all those things. It might just be like, I'm going to eat healthy. So part of that for me, I'll pick one thing. It's like, I want to feel good in my body. And that doesn't have a weight goal to it per se, but you might need to make it actionable in the sense that like, I'm going to start by having more vegetables. I'm going to add vegetables to every meal, right? That's going to be my first start. Anyways, things like that. My point of breaking it down that way is instead of getting caught up, like you're saying, with all the goals you might get because you could be overwhelmed, it's like start with a feeling and start with an action that might create that feeling and work that way. And, you know, and I'd love your thoughts on this. You know, a vision board can be used more than 1 year, right? Like you might want to use it again or tweak it.
Yes. And mine is actually, this is year number 2 of the vision board that's in front of me. I'm excited to redo it again in January. I'm going to do a new one. But it's funny, I hadn't told you that. This is my year 2 with the same vision board because it's just been that powerful for me. If something's working for you, you don't have to let it go just because everyone says you should do a new one. If it's working for you, if you're seeing transformation in yourself emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and just in life in general, why throw it out? So I'm also in agreement with using some of the same images again. If they're just that powerful, you can change it up with some new images with the ones that you've already used. But once again, those images have to evoke an emotion and they don't have to be a literal. And some people will say, in order for me to feel peace, it really starts with my environment and how I have created my environment, whether it's around cluttering, whether it's around the people, whether it's around buying a new house, right? And it doesn't have to be that literal. Here's a picture of a house. Here are pictures of keys. Those are great if that speaks to you. But it could just be that chair sitting in front of a window as your image, because just you imagine that space, just a moment of sitting in that chair at peace, breathing, and nothing's pulling on you. Just evoking, I put myself there just that quick.
Yes, me too. I was with you. I'm like, I need a chair like that.
Creates a feeling of peace. And that's what you can connect to in your board.
And that connecting to the emotions, it gives you a lot more freedom too in the way you create your board. It doesn't have to be like you said. If you say I'm trying to buy a new home, okay, you get caught up in trying to find like the house that looks close enough to the house you want. Versus again, when we're connecting to an emotion, it's like, no, what is the feeling behind the house? Because you don't ultimately know what you might end up with unless you're building from scratch, right? But you do know how you want to feel. Now, when you're house hunting, you are going for like, what house makes me feel like the image I've created, like that chair, like sitting in front of that fireplace or whatever that is for you. That it makes sense that becomes the progression by which it happens.
Most definitely. I love
Love
that.
that. Love that. Okay. So, closing thoughts for people. I mean, I think we've gotten a lot of goodness here. And I want to know, is there any closing thoughts that you want people to know about vision boarding that we haven't talked about yet?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think vision boards sometimes are misunderstood because people don't use them or produce them in the way that is going to serve them well. They once again it's just seen as this party favor type of thing. But if it's truly used with the understanding of just how powerful it can be for you, really, I think people would put more effort and more thought behind it. And once again, just really recognizing that it's a tool. You still have to actually do the work, right?
Yeah.
It is a tool just like everything else, but really it comes back to being honest with yourself, not doing something because or creating a goal for yourself because that's what other people think you should, or that's just the way you've always done things. And recognizing how we kind of get in our own way, so that we want to make sure that we're owning that piece as well. And then making those goals not only relevant to us, but achievable. Sometimes we shoot for the moon, and I'm all about having lofty goals, but if we don't also recognize that there are a lot of steps along the way to the moon, maybe we should aim for, the skyscraper first,
Yeah.
and then create those steps to get to the skyscraper, so that we don't become disgruntled or disappointed because we haven't accomplished the big one. Maybe it's okay to start with the small wins first, feel good about those, and then build them up as well. So that's another way to view how you approach your vision board.
That would be amazing. And I think that's a great takeaway. Making sure that your vision board has small wins in it too, right? Instead of the like, see people put their Rolls Royce out front and the vision board and all these like pieces that are, if you have, $10 in your bank account, that may not be something you achieve in the year, right? But you might be putting toward a goal of like, debt free, having that word on your vision board, or breaking even, like starting somewhere so you have something to celebrate, because there's no point in having a vision board that by, December of the following year, you're kind of discouraged because you didn't make any of those goals. You're like, well, that's nice. That was a great dream I had. And so it's a good way to make it actionable, to have that blend of thinking big and shooting for the moon, and also shooting for the skyscraper or the roof of your current building, like trying for that first. And then you have this nice balance and richness that you can celebrate some wins and still keep optimistic about bigger goals down the road. So thank you, Erica. This has been so helpful. And if you all are listening along, and you have to, of course, have subscribed to our workbook that goes along with this month, you will have a digital, I did a BGB vision board of what I wanted the podcast to look like. I have a link to it. It's free for you all to go make your own and make it your own, and take some of these tools and tips that Erica has given us that are going to be invaluable. I know for myself, as I make my vision board, to making sure I actually get what I want this coming year, that I actually feel optimistic and, most importantly, motivated. Erica, thank you for coming on and blessing us with your wisdom. How can we connect with you?
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I love talking about this. So thank you so much for having me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Erica and Reed, LCSWC. Also, my website is leadingwellsolutions.com. And if you're interested in a workshop around this, you can go to tinyurl.com/2025 roadmap.
Wonderful. Great resources. That's going to be in both our workbook and in the show notes for today. Erica, thank you so much.
You're welcome.